Hi, and welcome to another episode of We Are Bixal. Today, we're in conversation with Erica Stevens. As our Vice President of Technology, Erica leads with a deep commitment to improving lives through the thoughtful application of technology. Her 20-plus years as a software engineer, spanning both private companies and the public sector, reflect a passion for using digital innovation to address the needs of communities and drive meaningful change. Erica, thank you so much for joining us today. We just want to start out by saying, or asking actually, what led you to joining the team here at Bixal?
So thanks for having me today.
Of course.
What really brought me here was essentially the mission and Carla. I know that folks here have many different stories of how they've come across Bixal and what they're looking for, but I think that what we all have in common, and certainly what I share, is joining an organization where its number one stated mission is being people absolutely first. So knowing that right off the bat was important for me to speaking with Carla, looking at the impact that the organization has and how I could slot into a high level role here and have that level of impact that Carla, Bixalers, everyone is looking to have. So after 20 some years in private sector and also a couple years as a United States digital service expert, I was looking to stay in civic tech and do something that's impactful. And so that's where I landed here.
I like to speak for a lot of Bixalers, saying that the mission is very important for us as well. So it's great to hear that sort of thing. You mentioned actually that one of the things I find so relatable, you said that specifically the challenges that showed up during the pandemic is also something that helped spark your interest in doing this line of work with an organization like Bixal. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. Being in private sector really helped me gather skills, learn leadership, and really be able to build a skill set for leading and guiding and coaching teams. During the pandemic, I felt the need and the draw to do something a little bit more helpful for fellow humans around me, citizens, immigrants, folks in the community. And so looking at the collective struggle of our communities and also the collective hope that we had and the help that I saw, I felt it was important to look for opportunity to do something for the greater good. Previous roles absolutely had that opportunity, but this was a little bit more hands-on, more focused on people and resolving issues that were occurring in the country at the time. It was kind of funny because I was watching some pandemic news, doom and gloom, and all these things that were going on at the time. And, a friend mentioned to me, she was like, the government really could use people like you. There's really just a lot of need there. And I was like, well, sure. Okay, fine. And she was kind of razzing me. And I was like, well, okay, fine. I'll put my resume in and I'll go apply. And so I found the USDS website and submitted my resume. And it was kind of a joke or a dare, but it was, done with meaning of like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe they do need help. And so I submitted my resume, and that was around November of 2021. So in 2021, I looked at my email and I was like, what's this from OMB, EOP, email? And I thought it was spam.
Yeah.
Exactly. I thought it was spam. And so I was ready to, remove the email. And I was like, wait a second, that domain looks legitimate. So I looked it up and they wanted to speak with me. So the pandemic was a really challenging time for all of us. And I just felt the need, the calling, if you will, to just stand up and offer support. The government is just always in need of technologists and folks that are willing to help solve their problems across various agencies. Putting my resume in and getting the call and working for USDS, that really kickstarted more of this people absolutely first, mission focus, contribution for my technical and leadership capabilities.
You said that you applied on a dare or as a joke. Well, the joke's on you. We love having you here. But you also said something in there about having this desire, this drive to contribute to the greater good. I'm very curious how your projects that you currently work on impact our clients and like contribute to that greater good.
So we have a wide variety of clients and agencies that we partner with. There's so much need, whether it's really basic fundamental things of help us solve these technical problems, or help us solve these efficiency problems, or help us solve our cloud problems, right? Like, we're just looking at all different problem sets. We have a very wide array of projects that we support our federal partners. Some of the specific agencies that we've worked with, GSA, SBA, we're now working with USAID partners as well across technology, several other agencies. So I'm looking at supporting our team members on various high impact projects there. And these provide the public with easily accessible, standardized, multilingual, and relevant info to digitally empower individuals there. We're looking at solving the problems they actually have, right? Now there's always room for growth and experiment and guidance, and we do strive to do that with our partners, but we also are really focused on solving the problems that they have, doing it efficiently and effectively.
I think that's so important what you just said and what you just described there, and that there are folks out there who, when they hear like, what is technology services? What are they actually doing for a greater good? How does that actually like impact? Aren't they just like building a website that does X, Y, and Z? But then when you hear someone explain just like what goes on during that time, I think it's really important, and that messaging sometimes gets lost. So I want to say thank you, just from, I don't know, as a U.S. citizen's point of view here, a amazing way to describe it, and great work that's going on.
That's great to hear, and I humbly accept that. Thank you. I think looking across Bixal, one of the things that help us stand apart from others is that we really look at all of this through the lens of HCD, so human-centered design practices and research that goes along with this. So it's not just about tech for tech's sake, it's tech with that human-centered approach, with that human-centered design. And so it's not just, oh, here's a website. It's here's a website that has this really effective customer experience, really effective human-centered design. And so it's across all the teams at Bixal, and this one team feel and one team commitment that we all make for our clients, because it's not just technology. Yes, sure, I'm representing technology right now, but it's not just about tech. It's about tech with all of these combined capabilities, really giving that oomph and that horsepower that the agencies need to deliver excellence.
I can say that I've interviewed many Bixlers throughout the years, and one of the common thread that I love hearing, and I'm hoping other folks love hearing as well, is that HCD approach to every aspect of the work, no matter what it is, whether it's comms or learning or tech, whatever it might be. I think that's, obviously one of the pillars and part of like basically the heart of what we do. So it's just great to hear that. When you think about your role, what makes you the proudest and what makes you the most like excited about the work that you are currently doing?
So when Bixlers are challenged, I'm proud of how they show up. We show up with integrity. We show up with kindness. We show up with, again, this people absolutely first mindset. So how we show up sets the stage for the duration of how long we're engaged in something. So I'm proud of how we show up alongside the immense skill set that we bring. So as technologists, that's anywhere from cyber to cloud to front end, back end engineering to AI, right? We have the full spectrum of capabilities here alongside data and data engineering. So with those really great tech skills and how we show up with kindness, with empathy, for really having that customer first mindset as well, enabling that is what makes me the most proud. And so being able to remove obstacles, being able to take that 30,000 foot view of how effective are we being here? How much more effective can we be? What is the client not asking for, but what do they need, or should we guide or coach or counsel them on? And so having that view where I can scrub in and give that guidance, or give teams the autonomy and the empowerment to give that guidance, is important to me, but also enhancing skill sets, right? We want to have a continuous learning environment here. And so continuing to encourage folks to grow and to develop their skills is also very empowering and very important for me as a leader.
With all due respect to our eventual AI overlords, that is something that when you talk about that human element and what you've just described there, when you have empathetic leadership, it creates a place where people can thrive no matter what they are doing. Whether some people call them, areas where you're doing more soft skills than hard skills that way, but I think that all skills thrive in an environment that how you just described and what makes you excited and most proud. That's just a great way to lead, in my opinion.
Absolutely. We're still humans.
Yep.
as much as we love our bots, and
Yep.
we love to nerd out about our bots and our AI here. We're still humans behind this, and
Yep.
and it's important to approach things as humans.
So with that, actually, it's very interesting when you talk about the evolution of technology. Obviously, we've seen incredible growth over the past 2, 3, 5, 10 years in this area. Where do you see the field going in the next several years, the next decade, let's say? And do you think Bixal's positioned to aid in that future?
Oh, we're absolutely positioned to aid in that future. Every one of our teams right now is focused on now, next, and future. So is future the next year, next 2 years, next 10 years? Let's talk more about the next handful of years, more than 10, because technology is going to be vastly different, I think, in 10 years from now. But over the next handful of years, working alongside our clients and their missions, and including responsible, safe experimentation using AI, large language models, data readiness consultations, and the full spectrum of software engineering, cyber, and cloud services. So when we look at AI being an accelerator across all the practices and partnering with our clients, that's where we see a lot of opportunity. So I know just recently OMB released, about 1,700 use cases in AI that already exist in government. So this is not new anymore, right? Like, this is functional, this is operational. We're just trying to figure out how to optimize for efficiency, effectiveness, throughput, safety, right? And reduce the risk that can come with AI, right? So if you look at folks that are experts in responsible AI, the safety of it, right? There's definitely examples where AI has not done a great job, or we haven't done a great job with the models, or I say collectively as technologists, and how we can improve upon those things. And so when we look at the future, Bixal is definitely well positioned. We've been building our muscles across all of tech, especially in AI, and looking at these 1,700 use cases that OMB released. There's opportunity, right? So as we're working with our existing clients, perhaps on projects or asks that were not specifically AI, we still have those conversations where maybe this could be a little bit more effective, or maybe we can start thinking about how we can optimize their knowledge management or their training or their onboarding, or how we can reduce some of their burden or administrative burden. So there's a lot of opportunity here with technology, but it's not just technology for technology's sake. That's the worst possible implementation. Let's never do that, right? It's technology for efficiency, burden reduction, human-centered focus, right? So we're an enabler and a builder of these items to collectively solve these problems.
I recently heard, and with what you just said there, I think that resonates even more, something I've been thinking about for a while. Someone recently said at a conference I went to, AI is not going to make organizations or individuals, obsolete. Organizations who know how to use AI are going to be the ones that thrive.
Absolutely. You can't wait, right?
Yep.
We can't be caught back-footed.
Yep.
Right? We have to, all of us in civic tech, all of us that are focused on driving these emerging techs to solve actual problems and make life better for actual humans that the government serves, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't be back-footed. We need to lean into these technologies and ask ourselves, how do we get this done? How can we be better? How can we improve what we're already trying to improve with these technologies? So it's improvement with the clients, with the citizens, with the immigrants in mind, not for them, right? And so this involves, again, going back to our HCD focus here of if it's designing with them and not for them. And this is also a USDS principle, building with the people, not for them.
A running theme throughout this entire conversation has been human-centered design. With that, when you think about your own self and your own time, you've explained what you want to do for citizens and other communities out there. For you, what do you do during your free time? What do you enjoy doing outside of your work hours?
I'm from Detroit, so I am a big Detroit sports fan. I do like the Lions are having a great season right now. The Red Wings are having an okay season. I am more of a hockey fan, though, so I do skate and attend a lot of Red Wings games if I can. So one thing I really enjoy about sports, and this also kind of ties into leadership, is just how you bring communities together, how you collectively solve problems together, how you work together. And so it's not work anymore, right? Like this is a hobby, this is free time, this is fun, but it's still kind of enhancing that mindset of like together we're stronger, like together, when we're passing together, when we're anticipating each other's moves, when we're thinking about how we can better position ourselves with the existing conditions or the opponent on the ice, right? I use a lot of hockey analogies or sports analogies. Unfortunately, I apologize to my teams for this frequently, but I do talk about this a lot and use these analogies to help us gain perspective and get us focused. But yeah, my free time, I am also a ceramic artist, so I really love working with clay. And one of the things I like about ceramics that also ties into, for me as a professional, is it built up my failure tolerance. So anybody that's worked with clay or ceramics knows, even when you're a top professional, you're still going to have 10 to 15% failure. And that's after, 10, 20 years of being great at it. There's just so many factors with working with clay. And so building up a failure tolerance is a really important skill to have professionally, as well as with any sort of hobby, because it's like, okay, I failed. Now what? Okay, I failed. What did I learn? All right. Next, it taught me all I can, right? So if I had a failed pot, had to throw it in the clay reclaim, it taught me all I can, moving on, right? And so that mindset I'll also talk about a lot with my teams as well, of like, we had a situation or an incident or something that wasn't pleasant, right? Well, what did it teach us? Okay, did it teach us all it can? All right, throw it in the reclaim, moving on. Yeah, it's hard to not relate my hobbies to how I focus on teams. But that's basically my main couple hobbies.
This is normally where I do a wrap up, but I feel obligated almost. You just talked about failure tolerance, and I think that is something, a lesson out there that so many of us need to consider and think about, because I think there is probably a mentality out there of folks when they fail about something. You hear the words teachable moments all the time.
Yeah.
But failure is a teacher that way. And I remember, I'm probably going to misattribute this, but I think there is an educator out there named Joe Wolf. I think that was his name. And he said that you're going to make 1,000 wrong choices, but the right one's out there. And I'm like, that is also something that I keep in mind. So failure tolerance, I think that you should lead like a Bixal Academy on like what that means and and what to do in those situations, because that's a lesson I think that we all could either learn or be reminded of.
We're all challenged so much, whether it's in our daily lives or the current, environments that we're in, professionally, family, friendships, relationships, all these things. Like, we're always being challenged in certain ways, but having that right attitude of like, things can fail and that's normal, right? We have to normalize failure and also create spaces that encourage failure in a way, because when you're failing, if you spend that few extra minutes looking at why did we fail? How did we fail? How did I fail? What could I do differently? If we spend a little bit of time with that reflectiveness, we can move forward with a greater approach next time. And so just looking at that whole concept, no, I totally agree, is failure truly is a teacher, and creating those spaces where we can fail safely. I stole this from somebody at USDA, but we talked a lot about always having a risk sponge with us. And so when we could tell folks were, worried about this or that, or, what could happen here and there. Yes, absolutely document it, be diligent. Let's approach things methodically, but also let's bring this risk sponge with us so we can just kind of soak up this risk and say, okay, with this risk set aside, how can we still progress? How can we still move forward? How can we have some small failures safely? How can we avoid unsafe future failures? And so just talking a little bit about absorbing risk and creating safe places for failure is incredibly important, especially when we're talking about these emerging techs. Back to these 1,700 AI use cases that OMB just released, right? Most of them you're going to see are internal or focused on burden reduction and training and guiding and knowledge management, because we have less risk there because it's not externally facing items and components here. They're more internal use cases, but they are still helping folks. And it's helping agencies, vendors, and technologists learn to flex and grow these muscles in a safer environment. So then when they do move on to higher risk areas or things that are public facing, that they've already learned more of those lessons.
I'm going to have to talk to the producers of this show, because I think that you've just opened up so many other areas that I would love to dive deeper into at some point. But we are currently just running up against our time limit on this particular episode. But just a spotlight on you. I just want to say again, thank you so much for chatting with me today. And I think that Bixal is so lucky to have you in the role that you're in. And I think you're doing great work.
Thank you so much, DJ. It's a pleasure to be here and pleasure to be at Bixal.